Diets are tools. What I've discovered over the years, because all my friends write diet books, right? And first of all, quite often we write the book for ourselves. And then we think everybody should do that one.
Hey, this worked for me. Everybody's got to do it.
Everybody should do this thing. Diets are tools. You need to figure out what is your big issue that you need help with right now. What's the best tool for that? If you've got inflammation, if you've got gut problems, I think the Virgin Diet could help you a bunch. If you can't get over your sugar cravings, Sugar Impact Diet. If you need to quickly help your blood sugar and insulin sensitivity, intermittent fasting and fasting are a great tool. I love that you had Sachin Panda on recently. I think his work is so amazing. And so I think the very first part of this is intermittent fasting, where you're eating within a 12-hour window, is normal eating. That shouldn't be considered fasting. When I was growing up, you ate dinner. You didn't eat after dinner. There was no fourth meal. Thank you, Taco Bell, for starting that one. Mm-hmm. You ate dinner and the kitchen was closed. You went to bed 3 hours later. You got up in the morning, about an hour or two after being up. You ate breakfast. You had lunch. Maybe you had a snack. That was it. Then all of a sudden we went into this, let's pull all the fat out. And all of a sudden we're supposed to graze. And we have breakfast and a snack and lunch and a snack and dinner and a snack. Because God forbid that somewhere in the middle of the night you got hungry, right? And so the very first thing is 12 hours is the most you should be eating in. And you should be eating 3-4 times. Maybe 2, but I think really for what you need in terms of protein, et cetera, 3 to 4. Now, I think we're better off shortening that a little bit, 8 to 10 hours. And I find for most people, if you get up in the morning, give yourself time to wake up, right? Cortisol's coming up. Insulin's going to start to get woken up again. Your pancreas is kind of going to sleep and bringing insulin down at night. So then eat. So get up in the morning, do your meditation, et cetera, have breakfast, hour and a half, 2 hours later. And then eat every 3 to 5 hours, because if you ate from the trifecta of eating protein first, adding in some non-starchy vegetables, adding in a little bit of fruit or a slow low carb and some healthy fats, you've got good blood sugar stability. You shouldn't be hungry every hour, right?
If you are hungry every hour, is that one of the earliest indications that your eating window or the foods you're eating is problematic and you got to shift things?
Yeah. So first I would always look at your meal. That's the greatest thing, tracking, going, did I get enough protein? Did I get some healthy fats? Did I get my non-starchy vegetables and fiber? I always go fiber from non-starchy vegetables or fruit, slow, low carbs. Did I do that? If I did that and something's still off, okay, now what's going on, right? Am I starting to get insulin resistant? Did I do a huge workout? Am I highly stressed? What's going on? So that's the first step, is that's normal eating. We got so far away from it that we had to create a term to get back to normal. Then let's look at compressing that feeding window and the autophagy piece. Well, first of all, the autophagy piece, getting rid of the damaged cells. Exercise is great for autophagy. We act like the only way to trigger autophagy is to do this fasting. No, that's one way. Exercise is a great way. So there are other ways you can do this, not just fasting. But fasting is so great for quickly restoring blood sugar stability, for insulin sensitivity. So if someone's really battling that, I think it can be amazing. Where it's not amazing is a 40-plus-year-old woman who's basically dieted her whole life. She's really damaged her muscle mass. And now she's going to do this, and she's going to eat OMAD, 1 meal a day, or she's going to eat 2 meals within her feeding window. No way she's going to get enough protein during that time. And that's a problem. Now, could she use it as a tool once or twice a week? Sure, that's a great thing. So maybe you do a 9-hour window 5 days a week, and then you say, I'm going to do weekends. It's easier for me. I'm going to compress it down and trigger some autophagy and do a 5-hour eating window. Totally do that. But a daily thing, I do not agree with the daily thing for the 40-plus-year-old woman, unless they've got way more muscle mass than they ever wanted to have, and they're hugely insulin resistant. And those two things don't go together. So they would be the weird unicorn out there.
Yeah. This goes back to a larger idea, which you're really talking about focusing on the basics. Even in your example with Ozempic, right? You were like, okay, can it be a tool, Awesome. But how do you do it right?
Mm-hmm.
Fasting, can it be a tool, but how do you do it right? And doing it right comes back to your core message that you were sharing earlier, right? Are you getting the right amount of protein? Are you tracking in some degree? Doesn't mean you track forever, but you have a general sense of how many calories you're consuming overall, even if you eat clean,
Right. And where they come from.
and where they come from, right? Eating too much of this, too little of that, etc. And then also, especially front loading a lot of that protein in the beginning of the day to increase that satiety and to have you be less hungry throughout there. And I think that one thing is important, and it's good to see the wellness industry shift over time, is that with the focus on these basics, like functional medicine is so amazing, integrative medicine is so amazing. And sometimes it's convinced people that, oh, it's this mercury thing,
Yeah.
or it's this thing over here,
You've got mold.
or mold that is the reason that you are overweight. Not that those things can't play a role, right? Especially when somebody's had progress and then they kind of get sort of bottom out, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not looking at the basics, more likely it's the basics and not some crazy thing out there that you haven't discovered yet in some obscure test.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
So when I started working in the whole weight loss resistance realm, like became obsessed with it, identified all of these different things, the first step so that I could understand the degree of your weight loss resistance was let's get the basics correct. So the basics were, of course, the diet we discussed already, starting to do resistance training hard and some HIIT training
And sleep.
and walking after meals, getting that sleep dialed in and looking at your stress. Remind me to tell you a funny stress story. Then we could start to look at those other
Yeah,
things.
if those things aren't together, again, just repeat them one more time because I think they're so essential for people.
So with diet, track, eat protein first, optimize your protein intake, and then add the non-starchy vegetables, add the fruit. And I have a trifecta. I call it eat by the plate, which is protein. And again, eating protein first. Then your healthy fats and your fiber from your non-starchy vegetables, fruit, and a small amount of slow, low carbs. The more fat, the less carbs. The more carbs, the less fat. Do not eat high carb, high fat. That is the obesogenic formula, right? And depending on your carbs, really, you have to earn your carbs, right? So beyond the vegetables and the fruit, what else you need really depends on your activity level. And I find people who are under more stress, they do better with more carbs. People who are more insulin resistant, more blood sugar stuff, do better with less carbs. So it's just, again, what's the best tool for you? There's no specific macro formula that's right for everybody, or right for you now might be different for you later. So that's where tracking can really help you identify, where do I feel the best? Because you are really your best nutritionist.
Just tightening up and sort of putting a little bow tie on the morning conversation. So we know protein. What does that look like for you in the morning? Like if you just give a few examples of how you hit that 50 grams of protein, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I'm a big smoothie person and have been for
Smoothie.
years because it's so easy. And so, or I will do a nut-based. Sadly, I wish that I could do dairy because whey protein and Greek style yogurt can be so amazing. However, when I was doing the whole weight loss resistance thing with the docs, one of the things I did was use a food sensitivity test. And so I had the opportunity to work with them in their offices and look at hundreds of these tests and then work with the lab director because who'd seen thousands and thousands of them. And the food sensitivity test, it's a tough one, looks at a delayed reaction to food due to gut permeability, leaky gut. Back when I first started talking about this, no one knew what leaky gut or food intolerance was, but we've had this test around as a tool for years. What I discovered in looking at these tests were that the majority of the people who took the test, I rarely ever saw someone with nothing. 90% of the people, dairy and eggs. Next tier was soy, corn, and peanuts. Gluten wasn't on that test, but gluten, as we know, creates leaky gut, makes your gut more permeable. And so the challenge I see in this and I actually just did a trial again because I've always been dairy intolerant. I thought, I'll try it again. I'll see. And in order to make that test work correctly, you have to eat it. And so I did Greek style yogurt and whey protein for a couple months and then bam, dairy intolerant again. So
And what did that show up as for you? Was that
it
bloating?
was
that
yeah, little
redness?
bloating, skin issues, but it's inflammation. It will trigger low-grade inflammation. A lot of times people won't even be aware of it. They'll go, oh, that's just normal for me. I get headaches, normal for me. I get gas and bloating, normal for me. No, that's not normal. That's your body going, hey, this is not working for you. And so Virgin Diet pulls that stuff out and then has you go back and challenge it so you can see the response, because it basically unmasks the food intolerance. You can also do a food sensitivity test. And so I did that, and I was bummed because Greek style yogurt is a great, easy one. And so for a while I was doing Greek style yogurt, stirring in my protein powder,
That's
extra
what I do.
collagen.
That's what I do in the morning.
And I was like, winner. Then I got the test. I was like, darn it. So
yeah, for me, it's I always had issues with dairy growing up. I didn't know it. And then I developed really bad acne. Then I went off of dairy. This was like when I was like 18, 19, primarily because I decided to become vegan. And my acne went completely away.
And so do your muscles.
I didn't even really have any muscles because I grew up vegetarian. So
yeah, vegetarians are at the highest risk for this because they basically eat eggs and dairy and soy. And those are three of the most common food intolerances. So if you aren't dairy intolerant, then, those are great options for me. I am, and I find for so many of my people, they are. So it's so easy to do a smoothie. Sometimes I'll do like an almond milk Greek style yogurt. I like the Kite Hill one. I'll stir in some collagen and protein powder into that. Or I'll do I love the Good Karma flax milk and the collagen and the protein powder, and I throw it all in a smoothie. And I use a little bit of green banana. Like, it's just where you can peel it. I freeze that. I throw half a green banana, and I throw in some chia or flax in there.
And you feel full.
Oh, totally full.
And then when's the next time that you end up eating for yourself?
I usually do breakfast around, we get up at 6 and meditate. I usually do breakfast around 8:30. We'll go to the gym about an hour after that.
So the smoothie is kind of like pretty much right away. And then
about 2 hours after waking up.
2 hours after waking up.
Yeah. Get up, meditate. We got a cold plunge. I talk myself into it. Tell myself I only have to do it for a minute. Stay in for 4. And then I'll do lunch usually around 12:1.
What is the worst way, not that we're demonizing anything, but if somebody's consistently starting their morning off like this, that's the opposite of what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Right? What's the worst way?
A skinny latte and a muffin.
A muffin.
Do you know those muffins from Starbucks? I was doing how to start your day off right. And I discovered that the sugar in like the healthy morning muffin at Starbucks was the same amount of sugar as 2 Hostess cupcakes.
Wow.
Right. And someone's going into Starbucks and they're seeing it and it looks like it's healthy and it's got, they're like, oh, I'll be good. I'll have the skinny latte, which is skim milk. So it's all sugar. And I'll have that little muffin. Wow. And it's just like, and you start a roller coaster when you do that, as you know. First of all, you just didn't shut down muscle protein breakdown. So it's continuing. So you're still breaking down muscle, and you just raised your blood sugar, raised insulin, right? So, which is going to drop your blood sugar, but insulin's still high. So you can't get the fat from your fat store. So now you're hungry. You're breaking down muscle. It's the worst state to be in.
Wow.
Your morning is the key. Like, that sets the metabolic tone for the day.
Before we move on, I'm just curious, Tessa, how much sugar does a skinny latte have? Can you look it up on the screen? Skinny latte,
then it depends
Starbucks.
What size.
And let's do a grande, because a lot of people love their big coffee.
And then you look at what people are really getting. It's like, I'm so fascinated. I always want to take pictures, and Tim's like, don't do that. Because you see what people are getting at the place. They get the egg white wrap, and then they get like the Frappuccino.
Yeah.
I go, one does not cancel the other out. Right, does not work that way.
I think it just goes back to like under education. Grande latte. There we go.
The skinny one. Well, it's really looking at those carbs of 28 and the sugars are 16.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Wow. Nuts.
That's crazy, especially when
in liquid form, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't drink your sugar.
Right.
Do not drink
more
that.
About that. Why is drinking
that's
your sugar?
A fast hit. At least people always go, well, what about fruit? I go, an apple's very different than apple juice.
Right.
I was at Vishen's A-Fest, and I was doing a talk on sugar, and I go, apple juice is the worst. And Vishen's mom was sitting right. He goes, my mom raised me on apple juice. I'm like, sorry, Mom, but it's like a Coke. It's got more fructose than the fructose in a Coke. Mm-hmm. Now, an apple's fantastic. because you have all that fiber, the pectin. It's going to slow down gastric emptying, but you have it just as a juice. It's a slam. It's the worst. Apple juice concentrate, which, by the way, this drives me nuts. On a label, you can say no sugar added and use apple juice concentrate.
Wow.
And it is worse for you than high fructose corn syrup. Like, that is criminal. Here's a mom trying to make the right decision. She's going into the store. She sees the little yogurt for her kid, and it says no sugar added. And it's got this garbage fruit at the bottom that's been soaked in apple juice concentrate that just turned it into a sundae.
Anything else like that you see people doing during their day that really throws them off? Like we talked about breakfast in particular, fruit,
well, how about the
juice.
Salad at lunch that they had?
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Let's talk about well, maybe they went and they got this low-fat salad with raspberry vinaigrette. It had some glazed walnuts on it and some crayon raisins. Right? And a little lettuce, maybe 5-10 calories of lettuce, some chicken breast, so that was good.
A couple tomatoes.
A couple tomatoes. And it's basically a sundae, a chicken sundae, right? So you look at those things that people go have, the Asian chicken salad, right? They're just so much sugar in these salad dressings.
And unless if you were tracking, you wouldn't really see that.
Mm-mm.
That's why it's important to track.
Oh, yeah. You just, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you're like, oh my gosh.
What's your favorite dressings to replace?
Oh, well, this is so easy. And the challenge is once you start to ask the questions at restaurants, you'll realize that the majority of oil used at restaurants are blends. They're not extra virgin olive oil, but you can get these little packets of extra virgin olive oil you can travel with. So the easiest thing to do at a restaurant is either get extra virgin olive oil and a lemon or red wine vinegar or guacamole. Like, you can always use a tablespoon or two of guacamole. That's what, if I'm going to Chipotle, that's my dressing, the guacamole or the salsa. But what you don't want to do is use their salad dressing, because it for sure is a blend with sugar. It's basically pro-inflammatory oils plus sugar. Like, that's a very bad combo, right?
Yeah, and like you said previously, something that you do occasionally on top of the base is one thing. But if every day at work, somebody's getting that same salad, that same component, and they're still not heading in the right direction towards their goals, they still feel like every year they're putting on a couple of pounds, they feel like, what's going on with me? That's when you really have to look at everything that you're doing together and say, hey, what's actually going on?
Well, and that is, again, I'm going to go back to using a bioimpedance scale. Like, if people get anything here, track, protein, bioimpedance scale, lift heavy stuff. If you're tracking, because if you're not tracking what your weight is made up of and your waist relative to your height, it drove me crazy for years that they wouldn't talk about waist height. I'm like, I'm 6 feet tall. My waist is not going to be the same as my 5 foot tall best friend. That's ridiculous. But if you are just tracking weight, because I've heard this so often, I weigh the same as I did when I was 30 and you're 60. I go, well, is it really the same? Because your weight might be the same, but if you have not been actively lifting weights, if you've just been doing cardio and some Pilates, I can pretty much guarantee you that it's not the same weight.
What's the best and most straightforward way, just like you kind of broke down the food side of things and what that looks like in a day, talk about with strength training? I think for a lot of women, especially in the 40 and older category, I think 40 and younger, it's really amazing because there's this resurgence and a lot of...
It's not a resurgence. It's new.
It's new.
It's new. I can tell you, since I've been around this forever, it's not a resurgence.
Okay, so there's this new energy, right?
Yeah.
Not to make it just completely about that, because it's also kind of city and culture in LA. You see women of all different ages, which is beautiful, and men too, working out, prioritizing strength training, making it a part of their life, being excited, celebrating aging, like, really showing the power of the body to transform. So I think for women under the age of 40, maybe a little bit easier, more examples, more of their friends in it. But I think over 40, there's still a little bit of intimidation of even kind of going to the gym and like what to do. So what are some of the ways or best practices that you've seen that make this a sustainable part of somebody's life?
Yes. And here's the mantra: forget aging gracefully. Forget it. Age powerfully. That changes everything. And so to age powerfully, you got to lift heavy weights. Now, lift heavy weights, what does that mean? Heavy for you. Right now, depending on where you are, that might be doing air squats over a chair. That's fine, but you'll progress and it'll get harder. So you don't have to go to a gym. You can do this at home. You do it where you're comfortable. For years, people go, I can't go to the gym. I don't have enough time. Well, first of all, I'd say make time. The number one reason people don't work out is they don't have time, but they have time for so many other things that do nothing for them. So I don't buy it. That's a so I don't have to statement. Make time, but you don't have to go to the gym because a lot of people aren't comfortable at the gym. There's so many online resources now for working out. But here's the foundational stuff. And this is where exercise gets challenging. As an exercise physiologist, there's so many different things for exercise. And there's cardiovascular training. And then within cardiovascular training, there's anaerobic and aerobic, like there's doing like very short bursts and then a little longer bursts and then longer than that burst and then steady state and then slow, right? So there's a cardiovascular training, there's flexibility, there's resistance. So lots of stuff here. So I'm going to give you the most important ones.
Specifically, and I think with the emphasis, because you've already said it, on strength training.
Yes. Well,
right?
Strength and power.
Strength and power training.
And, as I looked at those stats, I will tell you, I wasn't prioritizing power in my own workout, but also in just teaching it in general. And as I looked at it, I went, well, if the biggest thing we lose as we age is power. And if you really think about what do we need, when you look at what does it mean to be fit, we need to be flexible. So that's where I love to, do yoga or Pilates once a week. But especially I love yoga because as you age, you got to be able to get off the floor. You got to be able to stand on one leg. I mean, there's great studies just showing the ability to balance on one leg and correlating that with all-cause mortality. Can't stand on one leg, you die faster. Can't get off the floor unassisted, you die faster. So that's where yoga's great. We started doing yoga and I'm like, why am I doing this stupid thing here on one leg over there? I don't want to do it. And then I read this stuff and I'm like, okay, I will do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the balance. You've got to have the flexibility. You have to have the agility. And power is going to help you do that. Why do people fall? They lose that. So it's muscle, strength, power, but the priority is really power, strength, muscle.
Got it.
And there are different types of training. Like in my grad thesis work, it was all on how do I create strength the fastest. That's not how you create muscle mass the fastest. Strength is like 1 to 5 reps, heaviest weight you can handle. Power is movement over time and really fast moving it, right? And then strength is doing repeated sets really in more like an 8 to 30 rep range. So when you're designing something, and I don't want to confuse people, first thing I'm going to say is you're not training to get better at training. You're training to be better at life. All those daily activity things you do. And in life, we are not bolted to the floor. So if everything you're doing at the gym are on machines, that doesn't translate as well to everyday life. So ideally, and this is where I love a TRX machine, because it can help support you as you start to go through these movements. So a squat is one that's fantastic. And you'll hear people say, I can't do that because of my back or my knee or whatever. Use a TRX machine to assist you. You can do a squat, you can do a one-legged squat, and you use less and less of holding on as you get better at it until you don't have to hold on, until you can use dumbbells or hold a weight here and do a goblet squat. So a squat is such a good functional movement. And someone might say they have a bad back. That was why I did the thesis work I did. It was all spinal lifting biomechanics, and that if you strengthen your quads, you would have a better back, right? You would take the pressure off. If you have a bad back, you better be good at squatting because you're going to have to get up and down off the toilet, off a chair, out of a low car. You have to do these things, right? The next one is a bent over row. And that is literally where you're bending over at the waist with your knees bent and you're pulling weights up because that's getting groceries out of the car. That's picking something up.
Picking your luggage up.
Right. So both a bent over row and a deadlift, these are such functional things that we do.
And would you say generally for most people, again, if they're not used to incorporating the power, the strength, the resistance training that's there, if you're serious about it, and it's like, this is your life, right? This is your longevity. This is the rest of your years.
If you're not serious about it, get serious about it.
Get serious about it, which means for most people, it's going to be better, at least for a little while, to probably work with some local trainer.
Yes. Here's the thing. There's so many ways to do this because if you're thinking, well, I can't afford that. You don't need to work with the trainer every single time. Get the program set with the trainer. And hey, if it's a stretch, get a friend to do it with you, which is even better. or a
Yeah.
small group. Learn the moves, dial in your form, form over weight every single time. Before you add a weight, you better have your form dialed. Because, you know, when you really look at how people get injured, it's not usually at the gym. They'll get injured at the gym if they aren't not using good form. So form is first. That's why we need mirrors and to really feel it and to offset any imbalances that we have. So I think working with a trainer is essential, or a physical therapist. Get these down. So a squat, a deadlift, a bent over row, a push-up. I just did a YouTube video on all these because you can take a push-up. You can do a push-up against a wall. You can do a push-up against a bench. You can do a push-up on your hands and knees as a tabletop. You can do a push-up on your toes. You can keep making that push-up harder and harder and harder till you get to the point where you're doing jumping push-ups, right, with a clap, or you're doing one-arm push-ups. So there's no end to push-ups. The other one that's super important, especially for women, you know, when they talk about bone density, they're like, walk. I go, that's not going to cut it. You need to axial load your spine. Like if you look at where we have issues, spine and hips, if you're doing an overhead press, and what's an overhead press? It's putting your luggage in the top part, right? In the upper compartment in the airplane. So overhead dumbbell presses are fantastic. So those things, when you look at it, we've got your hips hinging, right? We've got upper body pushing. That's going to be your chest and your triceps. We've got upper body pulling. I actually do pull-ups, and I think women should do pull-ups or hangs. I know they're like, oh my gosh. But if you just can hang, that's amazing for improving your grip strength. And grip strength is absolutely correlated with all-cause mortality. So those simple things can make all the difference. And there's a lot of room to improve, and they don't need much. You can have some dumbbells at home and a TRX machine. So it's easy enough to do to start at home if that's where you're comfortable.
Are they targeting a minimum amount of working out on a week, right? For strength training in particular.
Yeah.
Right?
So the best thing that you can do is to hit each body part minimally 2 days a week. Now, if someone's listening, they might go, but you forgot core, because like I have my core 4 program, and it's upper body pushing, upper body pulling, hips and thighs, and power core. But the reality is, if you are doing squats and deadlifts and push-ups, you are actually doing your core because it's engaged through all of that. It has to be. That's why it's so much nicer to do a push-up than like a seated chest press, because a seated chest press, I don't have to engage my core. I can just sag, whatever, right? But if I'm doing a push-up, I have to engage my core. If I'm doing an overhead press, I have to engage my core. So your core is engaged in all of these. You want to hit each body part at least 2 times a week. 3 is really better. And I think since we are working against time here, 3 is better. For strength, for muscular hypertrophy, the range, it was funny when I was in school way back when, it was 8 to 12 reps, multiple sets. And because you only grow a fiber you recruit, and you're not going to recruit them all the first set. So you do multiple sets with like 60 to 90 second rest breaks so that you can recruit more and more and more. Now we know it can be up to 30 reps, which is important because if someone is concerned lifting heavier weights, because you have to get to the point where you feel like you really can't do another one. You're really close to that. And for most people, they're not there. They could go harder. And so if it's scary for you to lift heavier, you can go longer. It just hurts. I don't like it. It's like I make myself do that every once in a while. I'm like, we're going to do a long day. And I'm like, oh, I ate it so much. So for strength, and what you can do is throw in a strength day once a week or do a week of strength. A strength is really 1 to 5 sets. And that I'll do that like for a week every 4 to 6 weeks. And it's hard. And you'll need like 2 to 3 minutes to recover. Now, I like to once a week throw in some power exercises. So for someone starting out, let's say squatting, that could just be doing a little squat jump. You just added in some power. You can jump at our gym. We have all sorts of little soft boxes. So you could jump onto a box and step down. It can be doing a little kettlebell swing. So something that involves moving faster.
Yeah. And for anybody that's listening that's not even there yet, it's like, just work with the trainer. Yeah. They're going to walk you through a lot of this.
They are.
Right?
They're
going to walk you through, and they're
going to meet you at where you're at. You can even get a virtual trainer. So if you're like, I'm not leaving my house and there's no trainer around here, there are virtual trainers who can do this too.
For sure.
Throw the camera on you, watch your form. You can literally start with some bands and dumbbells. I'm a big, big fan of TRX. No affiliation. They should really hire me. But I'm a huge fan of TRX because there's so much you can do with this. And then the other thing that you can also use, if you, let's say, are restricted in any way, have an injury, are recovering from something, because one of the biggest things that throws people off their program is an injury or sickness. And blood flow restriction bands allow you to get to that fatigue at a lower weight. So if you have any of those issues, Google blood flow restriction bands. The person who created all of this was this Dr. Katsu, Kaatsu. And that's like a $1,600 unit, but you can get the ones are like $100. So you can always do that too. So the reason I'm pointing that out, there's no excuse. There's always a way. I remember when I had a knee surgery and I'd go to the gym, hop around, was lifting my weights, used a Schwinn Aerodyne with one leg and arms. I'm like, find a way. There's always a way.
That's a great message. And it just goes back to this idea of strength training. People are listening. It's like, that sounds tough, but it should be tough.
Yes, it is. It is tough.
I don't remember, I had a mentor of mine who kind of shared this quote with me. He said, either you kick your ass or life will kick your ass. Life will still kick your ass, but you'll be better prepared for it.
Yeah.
Right?
You'll be able to kick back.
You'll be able to kick back, right? At least protect yourself.
Well, and the other thing that we've done is we go to this one place in Tampa called Camp Tampa where we do yoga. And we're like the old folks, the cute old couple in the yoga class, right? And this place is really cool. It's got 3 different buildings. One's some kind of a weight circuit class. One was this HIIT thing. And then we just would go to sound healing and hot yoga. And the hot yoga was hard. Like it's not a little restorative yoga class. This is like crow, So we are holding our own here with these 20-year-old yogi girls. We see that there's this other class there. We know that we need to push ourselves harder on our HIIT training. So we sign up for that. We go over there and they're like, aren't you the yoga people? You sure you want to go to this? This is an intimidating class. We walk into it. It's like black walls. It says grind time. It's got like a disco music and lights and self-propelled treadmills down one lane and all these kettlebells and bands and step benches on the other. And we're like, we got this. We killed ourselves because literally we were like, could have been everyone's parents, maybe even grandparents in the room. But what it really showed me too is we've got to keep trying different things and pushing ourselves. That's where a trainer can be great. That's where going to a class can be great. It's going to keep you young, learning new skills, hugely important. But holy smokes, I didn't push myself that hard. I'll push myself really hard with weights. I will just absolutely do it. But sprinting, I need to be in a class where I'm like going to compete with everyone around me.
What does it feel like to you to know that you are as fit as you are at the age that you're at?
I'm actually the fittest I think I've ever been, which is super cool. I just did my body fat again because I was like, I'm going to be 60. Like, look at this. I like literally just.
Yeah, you're ripped.
I went, all right, like this is an opportunity. And I think we need to approach aging like this because you know what? You weed out the weak. I know it's like all of a sudden it's like you're fit and in your 20s, everyone's fit. Yeah. But all of a sudden in your 60s, no, like Mark Sissom's the only one, right?
What are a few hacks that you have that can help them get to that place of sustained fat loss, which is different than weight loss?
Yes. And by the way, it's different and the most important, as we know. And that brings up the very first topic of you've got to know what you're looking at, because how would you know if you lost fat or weight unless you were actually looking? Now, this can be as simple because most of the time when people want to lose fat, they want to lose the fat around their waist. They want to lose that visceral adipose tissue, right? So just simply having a tape measure. So once a week, you do your waist and hips. So you have a waist to hip and a waist to height measurement. And there is actually a Bluetooth tape measure by Renpho, $30 on Amazon. Greatest thing ever. It reads right into your phone. So you just do this every week. That way you know if things are going in the right direction. So I say that first because what we measure and monitor, we can improve. There are so many cool things that you can do to help your body use fat for fuel. Remember, we don't lose weight to get healthy. We have to get metabolically healthy so their body can burn fat and hold on to or build muscle. And for me, I always think the biggest needle mover is what's at the end of your fork. Right? That's the biggest easy way to change. And I love what one of my first mentors said to me. He said, add before you take away. Because when you think of the typical diet culture, it's, okay, what am I not going to have? And I don't know about you, but the minute someone tells me I can't have something, what do I want? Right? The thing. So the very first thing is to just start to eat protein first, is to really optimize and prioritize protein. So first of all, figure out how much protein you should be eating each day, which I'm sure is more than what you're eating, having now seen so many different diet recalls over the years. And basically, you want to think of 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of target body weight. Then I have people eat that first at each meal, because if they do, they actually ate it, which sounds really silly, but I hear too often, oh, I got too full, right? Now, the research also shows that when you eat protein first, you make better food choices overall. You'll also have that good blood sugar control, just like as if you ate vegetables. My rule is eat your protein first, then add your non-starchy vegetables. But you also get a thermic effect of food. Like metabolism is dictated by 4 things. Number 1, your basal metabolic rate. That's really the biggest way you can change that, is how much muscle mass you have on. Number 2 is how much you move. And that's divided into 2 things, non-exercise and exercise. And so that's 2 and 3. And then number 4 is your thermic effect of food, of which fat doesn't really have a thermic effect. Carbohydrates is minimal. So the big needle mover there is protein. So protein's going to have a better metabolic effect. It's also more satiating. It's also more satisfying. And those are 2 different things. Satiating means you're not as hungry. We know it's one of the ways we can raise GLP-1, but satisfying means you don't have the cravings, and probably because of the amino acids making the neurotransmitters. So that's the first one, is eat protein first. And if you are trying to lose weight overall, which means you're going to be in a little bit of caloric restriction, this can help you hold on to lean body mass, fat-free mass as you do so, which is mission critical.
So eating protein first, literally, what does that look like at breakfast, for example?
So at breakfast, that could be, and I always have to caveat these, because in the Virgin Diet, I discovered that so many people had leaky gut and were reacting to dairy and eggs. Doesn't mean they can't ever eat them, it means they need to heal their gut. So assuming that you're fine with those, it could be 2 eggs and 4 to 6 egg whites, with some, like I love to make a scramble of those with a little bit of feta cheese and spinach and mushrooms. It could be a Greek-style yogurt. Maybe I like to stir in, if I'm going to do that, some collagen as well, even though that's not a complete protein, but it could be some Greek-style yogurt. It could be a protein shake. Let's say you're plant-based, a pea or pea rice combo, so that you're getting in, if you're plant-based, I say 40 grams. If you're doing animal, you can probably go more like 30, because you're really looking for the right essential amino acid levels. And for plant, it tends to be not as bioavailable and digestible. And so you're looking for at least 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. So that's where that's coming from. Now, a hack here that I think needs to be out there a lot more, especially as we age, and the studies are pretty interesting on this, is that you can hack this by taking some essential amino acids alongside it. And I actually think that everyone over 50, this is a good thing to put into play, because it's sort of like your essential amino acid insurance policy. So you have breakfast and you also have a serving of essential amino acids. That way it's you know you got what you needed. And as we age, we tend to be more anabolic resistant. So we have more challenges using those essential amino acids and being able to go through muscle protein synthesis. So this helps kind of push past that. So that's the other piece that I put in. Like this morning I had breakfast, I had a little hit of essential amino acids alongside it.
Yeah, and just so everybody's aware, that you're talking, that's a supplement. It's a
It's a
powder,
supplement.
and you add it to water and you drink it.
Yeah. Essential amino acids taste icky, so they always have a flavor to them. They're still not fabulous. It just is what it is, but they're easy enough to take in a little glass of water and take a hit.
They're not going to make up for not eating protein, but as you mentioned, they're an insurance policy.
Exactly. It's just like supplements don't make up for, eating a crappy diet.
So that was number 1. Eat protein first. And just a little bit of a recap on that. How is that connected back to fat and burning fat? You get full. You don't eat a lot of the quote unquote bad stuff or the things that aren't as supportive or actually lead to excess fat in the body. You get the thermogenic effect of protein because protein takes a lot to process in the body. So it's burning calories itself in that. You're supporting your muscle mass. Your lean muscle mass is active in itself. It's metabolically active. It's going to be burning fat throughout the day, especially if you're resistance training and maintaining that lean muscle mass. Anything else I missed on that?
Those are the key ones. Those are super key. And I think we've got to really think about protecting lean mass, because this is ultimately where we're going to start to be able to burn our fat and boost our metabolism. And that leads me to number 2, is we've got to make sure that we're doing some type of resistance training, but for a couple different reasons. One of them is you would think of resistance training of, okay, more muscle, better metabolism. Yes. I mean, if you look at one of the challenges that happens as we lose weight, we lower our metabolic rate. We can offset some of that by having more muscle. But the other reason that muscle is so important is because it is the place where we can start to restore our insulin sensitivity. So what happens as we age? And I am convinced that a lot of what happens as we age isn't really because of aging. I think it's because of how we behave as we age. We're not as active as we used to be. We are tending to eat kind of more, what are the foods? Like you go out to dinner. I don't know. When I was in college, I wasn't going out to dinner and eating some of the things that I had access to in my 30s and 40s and 50s, right? So we're not exercising as much. We might be eating a little bit more indulgent foods. Maybe we're drinking a little bit more. We're stressed like we didn't used to be. We're not sleeping like we used to. Those things can cause insulin resistance. And if you're insulin resistant, it's very hard for you to use stored fat for fuel. You are being more likely to lay down belly fat. So one of the quickest ways to start to restore that is resistance training. So resistance training has to be put in there, and that's really that 1-2 punch protein resistance training, so that we are making sure that we're holding on to our building muscle mass, and we're going to have a better basal metabolic rate, better insulin sensitivity. And so that's the second one that kind of goes into overall movement, because I've been really thinking about what is the best way to help us move more. When you look at the CDC recommendations for exercise, which is 150 minutes a week, right? And now they've added in 2 days of strength training, but they didn't say what it was. So I'm like, well, how does someone make sense of any of this stuff? But then you look at the research that's just come out showing that if you work out 30 minutes a day and sit 11 and a half hours a day, you basically erase it, right? I think that we've been thinking about this all wrong. I actually think that when you look at all of this, again, if I'm looking at, okay, someone wants to lose body fat, especially belly fat, I always want to give them the quickest wins possible, because I know for most of us, we're so frustrated and things just don't seem to be working. A lot of it's because we're so metabolically unhealthy that we're looking for quick wins to just have a sign that something's working, right? So that's where protein's so helpful, because if you're hungry, all bets are off. And if you're craving, all bets are off. And so protein's always first. But I think that we really have to think about moving more. And I don't like the term exercise snacks, because I was using it the other day and someone literally said, Drew, they go, we get to eat while we're working out? I'm like, no. I'm thinking microdoses might be a better term, although maybe now they'll think we're taking mushrooms while we're working out. I don't know. But when you look at this, if we first started just by tracking, and anything I do, I like to track first. And if you first started and went, okay, how many steps am I actually getting in a day? Do you know what the average person is getting in terms of steps per day?
I think I saw it was 4,000 or less.
Yeah, 3,500 to 4,000. That's crazy. I'm actually working with someone right now who we are working on 200-pound weight loss. And he was moving 2,500 steps a day on a good day.
When you track, a lot of people see that they thought they were super active. They're like, oh, I'm like running around my house. I'm walking here, I'm walking there. But when you actually track, a lot of people are shocked to see they're not as active as they think they are.
And that really, before resistance training, that should be step one. Let's start first with tracking. And I find that just by tracking, guess what's going to happen? You're actually going to start to move more, right? And you know, we use our phone for so many of our dopamine hits. Let's just use our phone with an Oura ring and just dopamine hit that activity of seeing how much you can get throughout the day, not saving it. I'm always aware, like I already know where my steps are today. Where am I? Because I know where I want to be by like midday. Like I don't want to end up 9 o'clock at night and go, oh shoot, I've got 4,000 steps so far. I'm in trouble. I'm heading out. Although my husband's seen me do it, I'm like, I'm heading out. Got to go for a walk. But you want to also distribute this all throughout the day. So if our first step here was really just to move more, when you think of your overall metabolism, that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, that can be anywhere from, 50, like 1,000 to 2,000 calories a day. It can be a substantial amount of movement, more than the exercise can. Like I look at exercise for the metabolic effect of building muscle and improving VO2 max.
Like traditional resistance training,
Right.
you're saying?
And we'll talk HIIT. But I look at really losing that fat is this movement all throughout the day.
Constantly moving, taking breaks. What's your general rule of thumb that could be easy for people to follow? A suggestion you give to your clients, like, hey, sit this amount of time and then let's get up and move on average.
I had a friend who made this shock band, Pavlok, and his whole thing was to shock people so they didn't smoke. And I'm like, gosh, I need that thing now to just to shock people every hour or two to go get up. I mean, but you can set that on your watch. I think we have to really be thinking about every 1 to 2 hours, what can we do to get up, even if it's 10 air squats, right? And with the person that I talked about who was at 2,500 steps a day and had 200 plus pounds to lose, you don't just go from 2,000 to 10,000. So the first thing I went was 2,500 to 3 to 4. We're at 5 right now. Steps per day, 5,000 steps a day. But then the other thing that I added in, and anyone can do this. Let's say that you right now go, oh, I'm doing 4,000 steps a day. Let's just increase that. Let's add 1,000. And let's start to look at how much can we get by noon? How much can we get in? So every couple hours, can we get up? Maybe we're doing 10 push-ups against a desk. Maybe we're doing 10 air squats. I think that we make this such a big deal that we either do all of it or none of it. In fact, there was a study that I looked at years ago, and we didn't know then any of this information. They literally looked at people who were told to walk 30 minutes a day or 10 minutes 3 times a day. And what they looked at the end of the study is, that they figured it would be the 30-minute-a-day people that did better, because back then it was all of that. If you can't work out for at least 30 minutes, don't work out. Remember that?
I don't remember that, but
you're younger than me. Back when I was in grad school, everything was about being in this zone, this target heart rate zone, and that in order for your body to start really burning fat, you had to be doing it for at least 30 minutes. It's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Wow, it sounds super ridiculous.
I mean, now we're like, what are you talking about? But so when they did the study, they figured, this isn't going to do anything. Well, they got better results. And then they thought, well, because they either did something versus nothing. But I also would argue, if you're going to go do a quick 10 minutes of something, you're going to do it harder. So what if you decided right now, and this is how you would take this home, I'm going to start tracking how much I walk. My Apple Watch, my phone, an Oura Ring, whatever thing you choose. Don't let that be a barrier.
Yeah, most phones already have a pedometer. If you're going to keep it on you, you're going to be tracking your steps.
Figure out how to do this. There's a way to do it. Winners find ways, right? So you're going to track. That's the first thing. Next thing is, wherever you are, let's start to increase it every couple days by 10% until you're hitting 8,000 as your bare minimum. And really your goal is much more around the 12,000. And so once you've got that dialed in, then there was a cool study that looked at people who were told to walk 12,000 steps a day. And another group said 3 times a week, make it a little harder. 3 times a week, 30 minutes, just make it harder. That group lost waist circumference, body composition improved, their blood sugar improved. The other group didn't. They saw a little improvement in their LDL. But this other group, and this was not in a lot of time, it was like 8 weeks, saw all of these other improvements. Same amount of steps. All they did was add a little intensity. So what I have people do is, let's get the steps going. Then let's add either hills, speed, or a rucking vest. I think rucking vests are the greatest thing ever. And then let's start adding in that resistance training, but let's do it in a microdosing type of way. So it could simply be, here I am sitting, and this is what I've designed with this person I'm working with is, okay, let's do 10 air squats. That's a dose. Let's get some dumbbells and do 10 overhead presses. That's a dose. And these are all things that we could do wherever we are. You could do body weight right against this table right now. You could do some push-ups. You could do them against the floor, depending on someone's fitness level. I never want them to have a reason they couldn't do it. So that's the first part. And yes, how I would have someone dose this is, again, I start with just the steps. Then let's add the intensity. Then let's start adding in some resistance training dosing. And if you can't do it all at once, say 3 times a week of all this resistance training, think of getting my upper body pushing. I'm going to do it 3 times a week, but I might be doing, it all throughout Monday. I might do a set of push-ups, another set of push-ups, another set of push-ups, maybe every hour. Fine. Doesn't matter. It's just getting it in that matters.
This all goes back to your larger sort of idea that you want people to embrace that you shared at the top of the interview, which is adding in. Let's add in. Let's add in these things. Let's add in the protein first. Let's add in these micro doses of exercise, right? Let's add in these components, because when you add in, you naturally start to crowd out the other behaviors that we all think we want to get away from. But sometimes focusing on what I don't want to do is not always the most successful way to do it. It's add these in.
Right. And give yourself some little rewards when you do it. But I was listening to a video this morning that was talking about exercise resistance and how if you are not moving enough, getting that 8,000 plus steps, and for this study, it was 8,600 steps was sort of the place where it shifted, that actually you were not able to burn fat well during exercise, that you became exercise resistant. You weren't getting the results that you wanted. Even more saying that if you think you can go to the gym a couple days a week and cross that off the list, you can't. But the reality is too, these are things that you can easily integrate into your life. Like I was going to walk here this morning, although I knew it would mess up my hair, but I'm going to walk back because I'm staying nearby.
Your hair looks great, by the way.
So, the beach fluff would not have worked. But I look at how do I incorporate this into what I'm doing, right? And then you can look at all throughout the day, how can I build more of this into my life? It's easy to do when you start to think about it and you do a little bit at a time so you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have the time. If you're listening right now, again, track your steps. If you're at 5,000, go to 6,000 and get a walking pad at home or stand and pace when you're on the phone. That's what I do now. It's like if I'm in a meeting, I stand up and I move around. I'm not sitting the whole time. I'm always standing, pacing, walking. How can I add more in? If I've got a meeting I have to do and I can get them to do a walk with me, bonus.
I love it. A few of these hacks you covered recently in a podcast episode you did. Your podcast is fantastic. Everybody should check it out. And we're going to piggyback off that theme, and you might have some additional ones you want to add in. One of these topics that you talked about when it comes to adding in is the importance of hydration, especially when it comes to burning fat and supporting your metabolism. What do you want to say about hydration?
Have you had Rick Johnson on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, so first of all, I have a big professional crush on Rick Johnson. He's awesome. Like he's the sweetest guy. And
he wrote a book called Nature Wants Us to Be Fat.
Right. So when I was writing the Sugar Impact Diet, he was my go-to because he's all about fructose. But what he taught me about hydration really blew my mind. Now, we've always known water is one of the greatest hacks for weight loss. First of all, it helps detoxify, super important. Second of all, even mild dehydration can lower your metabolism. We know drinking water actually gives you a little bit of a metabolic boost. It's not going to be huge, but everything counts. But what I didn't know, we also know it's big for satiety, and especially if you're eating more fiber, really important to have more water. So detoxifying, satiety, little bit of metabolic boost. If you're mildly dehydrated, it also can impact stress hormones, which could cause some belly fat. But I finally learned the real mechanism. When I heard this, I'm like, that is crazy. So what Rick told me was when you are dehydrated, what happens is your body you have carbohydrates you've stored in your liver as glycogen. Now, when you eat fructose, some of the fructose that you eat, as we know, can get turned into glucose and stored as glycogen in the liver. But a lot of times if we eat too much fructose, it's very easily turned into fat. And this is where we get elevated triglycerides, elevated liver fat, right? It's why there's all of that hoopla about don't eat a bunch of high fructose corn syrup. But the reality is it's really things like agave and apple juice concentrate that create a lot of these problems. It's the unwrapped sugars. What this has to do with dehydration is when you are mildly dehydrated, your body actually frees up the glycogen in your liver, converts it to fructose, which I didn't even know you could go back in the pathway that way. You can convert it back to fructose and turns it into fat.
It's nuts.
It's awful. Like I was like, are you kidding me? And that's the type of fat that's going to be now this visceral adipose tissue. So that is just wild when you think about that, just mild dehydration. And this is why, I used to say your body's not a bank account, it's a chemistry lab. Now I say it's a bank account, it's a chemistry lab, and it's a history book. Here's how you can gain fat without changing any calories, right? You didn't eat anything, you didn't drink anything, you're dehydrated. Your body is now holding onto and storing fat so that if you were out in the desert, you could then burn that fat for fuel and liberate the water, just like a camel does. Like a camel stores fat so that when it burns the fat, one of the byproducts of the fat burning is water. So that's why we're doing it. So that's why you don't want to be dehydrated. And we're not talking very dehydrated. This is mild dehydration.
In addition to fat, mild dehydration, we'll link to a study that we covered in our newsletter previously. It makes you less alert. You feel less focused. You feel irritated. There's all sorts of consequences. So what's your general rule of thumb? Obviously, people have different body sizes, shapes, genders, etc. How are you talking about appropriate levels of hydration for people?
I think appropriate is probably half your weight in body and water ounces, and then adding for exercise. So like every minute of exercise, another half ounce. So more than what people think. And one of the ways to test is like, what's your pee look like? Now, if you just took B vitamins, it's going to be bright yellow. So that's not relevant. But for the most part, if you've got very concentrated urine, problem, right? And the other cool thing, we used to always say, oh, if you drink coffee, you have to drink twice as much water if you have to. Not the case. So everything counts. But obviously, the more you can do just some great, clean, pure water, the better.
Amazing.
And you just took a sip of water right when I said
I
that.
know.
So I
need a little sip of water. Quick question on water. When are you using electrolytes? They're so common these days. Obviously, a lot of them taste amazing, so people use them all the time. Are they overusing them? What's your recommendation?
I think if you're not exercising once a day, if you're exercising probably twice a day, and I'm assuming you're not doing heavy endurance, lots of sweat. It depends where you are. I live in Florida, so I generally do 2 a day on my exercise days, but I'm careful with them because it's easy to overdo them.
Great.
Especially now that Element's got sparkling. I was like, oh no. So, these aren't have as much as you want. What I do in the morning when I'm going to the gym is I will take electrolytes, creatine, and my essential amino acids and put them all in this massive 64 ouncer, and I drink the whole thing.
Give us a list of a few things that hinder weight loss for women over 40.
Okay, well, here's the first one. Stop trying to lose weight. Like, what? And in fact, when you think about it, if your sole focus was to lose weight, what should you do? You should fast as much as possible, eat as little as possible, and move as little as possible. And you'll lose a lot of weight, and you will damage your metabolism to the point it will be hard to come back from that. So we have to shift that focus from weight loss to improving what that weight is made up of. Because the reality is, if you fix that, if you fix your metabolism, because a healthy body will lose fat and hold on to or build muscle, you have to get healthy to do that. You don't lose weight to get healthy. And in fact, you can lose weight and really damage your metabolism. So if you shift that focus and improve that body composition, then fat loss becomes effortless.
Let's talk about the number 40. Why are we having that conversation of at 40 and above? What's going on in the body?
Yeah,
when
what
we
happened?
Hit 40?
I still remember I was doing a down dog at my fitness and wellness studio and looking and going, whose thighs are those? What skin is going on there? What the heck, right? What happens at 40? And it really probably happens a little younger than that, but I think we start to see it more at 40. 45, 50 is that we start to lose muscle if we are not actively working against it. I'm 60 and I'm fitter than I've ever been. So this doesn't have to be this sentence of doom. But if you don't actively work against this, starting at 40, we lose up to 1% of our muscle each year. That's actually not the worst part. 2 to 4% of our strength, 6% of our power. And I think we're focusing a lot now on muscle, which I'm thrilled about. I feel like my time has come as an exercise physiologist. But we're missing the big part, which is strength and power. And I remember at age 50, I was going to unscrew a lid and I couldn't unscrew it. I was always the lid unscrewer in the household. And all of a sudden I'm like, I can't unscrew this lid. What the heck is going on here? Like me, the person who's lifted weights since I was age 16. And I went, I need to focus on strength and power. So it means the workouts that we did in our 20s and 30s need to shift dramatically along with our diet, of course.
Let's come back to this idea and do's and don'ts. I'm going to zigzag for a second. So give us a few more do's and don'ts when it comes to weight loss, especially for women over 40.
Yeah, and I was fortunate early on as I was paying my way through grad school and doctoral school to have all my clients were 40s and 50s and pretty even split between men and women. But what they were teaching me in school, I tried that with my clients and it didn't work.
And what were they teaching you? Just so
they were
everybody
teaching,
knows.
oh my gosh. But what's crazy is the stuff that we were taught back then is actually still around today. They taught us calories in, calories out. And I like to say calories count, but it's clear from the research that where they come from counts more. Like I literally had a doctor once tell one of my clients that it just was calories in, calories out. She could eat all her calories from pie. She just needed to create a deficit. I'm like, yeah, not really, right? So it was calories in, calories out. And you had to do cardio to lose the weight first before you did resistance training. That was the whole thing. In fact, everything in grad school, all of the research projects were based on cardio. And I was like, I am not doing my research project on cardio. Because as I realized it didn't work and I wasn't going to get paid to make people worse, right? I shifted the diet into protein first, and I started doing loads and loads of resistance training. And the cardio I did do was sprint training. And so my graduate projects were on resistance training and plyometrics. In fact, this is funny. A gal, Tracy York, and I over at Matrix were trying to design a plyometric class. But the problem was we couldn't take people past 10 to 12 minutes. And the classes all had to be at least 30 minutes. So we were like, done.
Because they would get sort of wiped out because it was so intense?
They were done. It was like you only needed you're going to do plyometrics and power training. You're not doing that for 30 minutes and certainly not for 60. And everything back then, you look at it, even in the research subjects, in our lab at Cal State Northridge, everything was 30 minutes to 60 minutes because of the classes. And I was doing how to create strength the fastest. Well, you don't need 30 minutes to do that. We were doing, how do you create quad strength the fastest? I don't need 30 minutes. I can do that in 5 to 10 minutes. So and everything was funded by Precor, treadmills and elliptical, right? So, I mean, there is, that whole message of you need to get the weight off before you start lifting weights, it's still around, which is bizarre to me because if you want to drop fat, the single most important thing you could possibly do is resistance training.
You'd put that as number one.
Oh, heck yeah. No question. Because what is one of the reasons you're not losing fat? Well, probably two of them. Metabolism. Like this is one of the big factors under our control in metabolism is muscle, right? And insulin sensitivity. Fastest way you can improve insulin sensitivity besides sleep is muscle. Put on more high quality muscle.
Just explain to people, why is that? To connect the dots.
So muscle, there's two ways I like to think of muscle. And it helps a lot for women. Muscle is your metabolic Spanx. So what does that mean? It holds everything in tighter, right? But it also supports a better metabolism because the muscle protein turnover that has to happen is so costly. It requires more energy on your body. We've all heard that. We also are like, muscle takes more energy than fat. Well, why? It's that protein turnover that happens. The other part is it's a sponge. It's a sugar sponge. It's an endocrine organ. The best place that we can put our carbs is in our muscles so that we can store them and use them when we need them. So it's going to help lower that blood sugar response. And then we have insulin improvement when those muscles are contracting. So we get better insulin sensitivity. So if you just remember those two things, metabolic Spanx, sugar sponge, those are the key things that are really going to help with that long-term body composition improvement.
Yeah. And going back to this idea that you shared earlier is that, yes, calories matter, but the quality of them matters. I think one thing that a lot of healthy people, probably a lot of people that consider themselves healthy that are listening to this podcast, right? And of course, that's a spectrum. I think that one of the things that's making a little bit of a resurgence is that it kind of was like for a while in the health industry, some folks, I'm not saying you, I don't know where you stood on this, were kind of saying, well, calories don't really matter. But I think that a lot of people that were in the health space found themselves because they don't track or they've never tracked before, so they don't have a good sense. They know how to look at a nutrition label, but they might be eating keto cookies or an Oreo gluten-free cookie, or they might even be having, this dressing that has a ton of olive oil instead of using, 2 tablespoons or using 5. Not that in itself would throw it off, but all these little decisions could add up. And many people didn't know that they were eating, 20, 30, 40% above what their calorie needs were based on their activity and their baseline. And they were scratching their head thinking, well, I'm eating clean. I'm eating clean-ish.
Yeah,
I'm eating clean junk food, but I'm still not losing weight.
Too much healthy food's unhealthy. It is.
Talk more about that. For a second.
So what you just said is so clear that we underestimate our calories by about 40%.
That's on average. Most people do that. Yeah.
And guess what? Even the health experts do.
Yeah.
Maybe not that high, but I have now become obsessive about having people track, not forever. Well, some things, like I think weight, and we'll talk about that, but tracking your calories and understanding where they're coming from and really looking at your macros and understanding what 5 ounces of lean filet look like is so important. And if you've never done it, you have no clue. How would you? Right? And so I think that, and the research is really clear on people who track. And the great example is my husband, right? Who, when he did his DEXA scan, I'm like, that's it. We're going to make sure you're getting the protein you need. And he was so resistant to
And
tracking.
just explain DEXA. Not everybody's familiar with that.
So I was fortunate when I was 39 to do a DEXA scan. I think that starting at age 30, I actually would love to see at age 20, because when are you going to be able to fix your bone mass? Not at age 60. Like the idea that we use a DEXA scan for bone health at age 60 when that ship's sailed, right, is silly. So a DEXA scan used to be something we used for bone mineral density. And, it was something that they would do with women, postmenopausal women. Again, a little late, right?
Trying to make sure that they weren't headed down the path of osteoporosis.
But at that point, you can't unscramble an egg. It's really hard to get more bone mass on at a time like that versus when you're in your peak years, your teens and 20s.
Still doable.
It's still doable.
But it's tougher. And there's all this behavior change that you have to get. Somebody's had 60 years of not working out.
Right.
It's a little bit tougher to get them to start working out at that time.
Yeah. So I did a DEXA at 39, and what had changed was they didn't just do bone anymore. They had the software so they could look at everything else. And so they would look at, because formerly you would do a bioimpedance scale, and I think this is an important thing to have at home, and no, it's not as accurate as a DEXA.
Oh, what was it again?
It's a bioimpedance scale.
Bioimpedance scale. Is that the type, or is it the brand?
Well, I'll tell you some brands that I like,
okay.
But basically here's the bigger concept. The bigger concept is that we must know what your weight is made up of. Just knowing your weight is like total cholesterol 20 years ago. We don't know. I mean, if it's some obscene number, you'd go, huh? But you could have a total cholesterol that looks high, but when you unpack it, your fractions are amazing and it's a non-issue. You could have a weight that looks high or low, but when you really look at what that weight's made up of, you go, oh, this is fantastic. So what a DEXA allows us to do is look at what that weight's made up of, and not just looking at body fat and fat-free mass, because I think we tend to focus on that too much and not enough on the fat-free mass and where the fat is. In fact, 20 years ago, I tried to work on norms for fat-free mass because I'm like, where are the norms for this? How do we know how much skeletal muscle someone should have? How much
Is fat-free mass the same thing as lean muscle mass?
they're slightly different,
Okay.
but it doesn't really matter.
Got it.
The
you're saying
bottom
20
line
years
is
ago-
we got two things. We've got fat and we've got everything else. What a DEXA is going to tell you is a couple important things, not just that how much fat you have, but where is that fat? Is that fat visceral adipose tissue? That's the scary, damaging fat, right? The pro-inflammatory, or is that the fat on your thighs, your glutes, right? So where's the fat? And then looking at fat-free mass, what is that? How much skeletal muscle you have? Do you have a fillet or do you have ribeyes for skeletal muscle? Because we've got to have that quality skeletal muscle in there too. And then it will also tell you, is it even? Like, is your right arm and your left arm, are they even? Right leg, left leg? Do we need to do some rebalancing in there as well? And so I will give you the great example. I'm really thrilled that Tim, my husband's letting me talk about this, but I'd done a DEXA at age 39. Now I will say a genetic misfit. Women have 10 to 12% essential fat, men 3 to 5%. That's the fat we must have on our body to survive. Right? So women have higher body fat, obvious reasons that we need to have more body fat. We've got more fat receptors on our thighs so we can store more fat so that we can breastfeed, et cetera, right? So at 39, I was 13.9%. Now I'd been as low as 10%. I used to work out at Gold's Gym. I was like, that was my world, right? But I'm a naturally very lean person. I'm more of a mesomorph. Tim, my husband's much more of an ectomorph, could go into the skinny fat place very easily. So we go do this DEXA when I'm 59 because I've decided that for my 60th birthday, getting inspired by Dr. Peter Attia and the Centenarian Decathlon, and then hearing our buddy Dr. Mark Hyman talk about how if you have a positive association with aging, you can live 7.5 years longer. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to get in my best shape for 60. So I go in and my body fat is 13.9%, same weight as when I was in at 39, which is an important metric because a lot of people will say, I'm the same weight I was 20 years ago. And I go, well, unless your body composition's the same and it was good back then, that's not necessarily a good thing because we're tending to, again, lose that muscle mass as we age and put on fat mass. So here's Tim. He's basically been the same weight forever. And his DEXA says 25%. Now, you wouldn't have looked at him and gone, he looks like a skinny fat. He carried it well. But I was like, this is not okay, honey. Like 25% is not okay for you. And back when I was in doctoral school, we were taught that that level for a man was insulin resistance. Now, it's weird because what we were taught were ideal body fats in the 80s are no longer what they're talking about as the norms. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure physiologically we didn't change. So why are we making it acceptable to have higher body fat? But I will tell you, if that body fat, like for him, it was stored on his legs and butt, very different than a usual male body fat, it's safe body fat. He may not have liked it, but it wasn't visceral adipose tissue, which is super dangerous.
The belly fat.
The belly fat. And it's interesting, belly fat. Early on, I used to go to people's houses and I take their scale out, which I would never do now, but I take their scale out. I now have a bioimpedance scale, and I would do a tape measure and skin folds. And what I would look at is I do body fat through bioimpedance. I compare it to skin folds, and I'd know the disparity plus their waist measurement would tell me how much internal fat they had because there was no way to really figure it out.
Right.
Right.
And just so everybody knows, skin folds is a process. If somebody didn't have access to a DEXA, some gyms
Right.
still do it. And you can only get a DEXA done really once a year, right?
No.
Is
You
it
could do a
twice a year?
DEXA once a month, but it wouldn't make any sense to. I think twice a year.
Which is the one that has a lot more radiation with it?
It's not the DEXA.
Is it the other one maybe?
I don't know. DEXA,
Okay, sorry,
DEXA's
not a
really.
DEXA.
But
So
here's
skin
the
folds
thing.
another way of looking at
Skin
the-
folds, if you're metabolically healthy, are fantastic.
Yeah.
But since there's only 6.8% of the population metabolically healthy, and probably people who are trying to improve their body composition are trying to improve their metabolic health, it's not going to work, because if you've got a lot of internal fat, that vat fat, you'll actually can look like you're really lean. I remember I had a woman who literally looked like a potato on stilts. She had so much visceral adipose tissue. She had very skinny arms and legs and very low skin fold fat on her abdomen because it was all internal. So you could look at that and go, okay, obviously, if your body fat's high by a bioimpedance scale, which is mimicking a DEXA but not as good, and your skin folds are low, we got a problem, right? Because that fat's in your visceral adipose tissue. So the cool thing with the DEXA is it is the gold standard. What you then can do is come home with that information, get yourself an inexpensive bioimpedance scale for home, knowing it's not going to be as accurate, but you can corroborate the results. And you're just looking for the relative change. And so an in-body machine or a Tanita machine, especially if it's segmental, and you can get those, you can get as cheap as $20, you can spend up to $400 or $500, but it's just important that you're tracking it, and you're tracking it every day and taking the average over a week. Because if you're losing weight, I always like to say, if you're losing weight but not losing your waist, you're making yourself worse, not better. But if you're losing weight and you're losing muscle, you're creating more metabolic damage. And that is a big challenge with a lot of what's going on right now, especially with the weight loss drugs, is unless you are highly focused on eating protein first and doing the resistance training, you could lose a 25% or more of your muscle mass. Now, unless you have a lot to lose, in which case you're going to lose some. But once you get closer to your goal, 10% should be the least amount of muscle that you're trying to lose. And for most of us, we really need to be putting it on, right?
Yeah, zooming out, because I think there's a lot of lessons in the things that you're sharing, and just connecting some of the big picture dots is that first and foremost, don't just focus on losing weight. It's really about body composition, which is your core message, right? What kind of weight do you want to end up losing? You don't want to lose out on muscle, as you mentioned some of the statistics earlier. We've talked about that on previous episodes too. And so how do you make sure you lose the right type of weight, but also if you want to preserve your muscle, or in some cases add muscle, because that's going to be protective in many things, insulin, how much sugar you can metabolize, just supporting your overall metabolism, then we need to make sure we have a strategy for that as well. And combined together, would you say that when you do that, not only is it going to be more sustainable, but you're actually going to end up getting to your results much better than what people are traditionally doing, which is starving themselves?
Well, I just would love everyone to just kind of think back to this time, because I'm sure it's not just me or clients that I've seen frustrated, is you cut calories and you get on the scale. And first you lose a little weight, and then your weight doesn't go down, and then maybe it goes up, and then you're like frustrated. Then you go, I failed. Then and you're using a scale that's going to vary based on body water, based on transit time of food, and you're letting it dictate how you feel about yourself, and you get super frustrated. Contrast that with, I'm going to focus first on really improving my muscle, turning from a ribeye into a fillet, getting stronger. And I know when I do that, and I'll monitor on the scale. Now, it will be a little bit like watching grass grow. We do not put on, the fact that my husband put that amount of muscle on in 6 months is super unusual. Now, there are some tips that will help. But the reality is, we should look at 1 pound a month. That would be amazing to do, right? So we're kind of watching grass grow doing this, but we'll also see indicators of oh my gosh, I was lifting, I was doing a chest press with 20-pound dumbbells, and now I'm doing it with 30-pound dumbbells. That's amazing. It's so inspiring. So we've got to look at the metrics that are the leading indicators, because a lot of times the body composition will be a lagging indicator, right? And so if we are getting stronger, we know what will happen. Now, we still have to make sure the diet's dialed in. I was all the way up to getting my PhD in exercise phys, but it was back during a time where we didn't even talk about hormones. There was no exercise endocrinology back then. And I looked at this, and I looked at my clients, and I went, I have got to pull the nutrition in too. When you put these two together, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. And especially when you look at building muscle, you can go in the gym and kill yourself all day long, but if you're not eating the right diet, you are not going to get the results that you could. We're focused so much on muscle, And that's important. But when you really look at what happens as we age, and again, I'm really unpacking right now how much this is aging and how much of this is the habits that we get into as we age. And I'm starting to think it's a lot more of our behaviors than actual physiological aging. And so we lose muscle. But that isn't really what's scary here. And as you start to unpack it, with muscle, we have two different types of skeletal muscle. We have slow twitch, and those are all the things like right now we're sitting up, our slow twitch muscle fibers are keeping us upright. If we're walking, if we're standing, those are all our slow twitch muscle fibers. Our fast twitch muscle fibers, and they can get bigger, but the ones that really tend to do more of the hypertrophy are the fast twitch muscle fibers. So as I started to look at this, I went, it must be that we're losing more fast twitch as we age, which is clear. As we age, while we're losing muscle, what we're really losing is 2 to 3 times more strength. But what the biggest thing we're losing is power. So muscle hypertrophy is your muscle size. And you want to think of that, but you also want to think of quality. Like having a big muscle doesn't necessarily mean you're strong. A lot of those guys over there at Gold's Gym weren't that strong. They just knew how to build muscle. Strength is how much you can move something one time. And it turns out to build strength, it's a little different than how you actually build muscle. There's crossover, but they're not the same. Power is how fast you can do something. And I think when we think of power, we also have to think of agility, because as we age, it's that ability to catch ourselves, move quickly, run up the stairs. That's what we lose. But again, we don't have to. But I think we start to look at it, and you look at the adult exercise classes, and they are standing there with the chair and doing chair exercises. And I think, that's not going to help us in life, sitting, doing our exercises in a chair, because in life we have to get out of the chair. And so, yes, your knees might hurt, your back might hurt. That's not the reason why you shouldn't do something. That's actually the reason why you should. Mm. I blew out my knee at 17, and they were like, you're going to have a knee replacement. But you want to put it off as long as possible because these things only last like 20 years. And so I just strengthened everything around it. And I thought, all right, all the things they tell you couldn't do with a blown out knee, squats and lunges and stuff, I did all of it. And I put off a knee replacement for till I was 52. And I remember when I walked in, they go, we don't know how you're walking in here.
Wow.
I go, I've just kept everything super duper strong. Again, think of your reason why not is probably your reason why, that we have to train to get better at life. And in life, we're going to have to get out of the way of something fast. We're going to have to pick something up off the floor, catch something, grab something. And so train for that in a controlled environment so that when you get out of that controlled environment out into the wild, you don't get hurt.
Such a powerful reminder, and really a mindset shift. We don't want to be thinking about aging gracefully, especially for women, right? It's almost like it's a messaging of sort of like quieting, not being too loud, don't be in sort of like, don't be a nuisance in the world. It's not intended to be that, but it kind of ends up being that, this idea of like gracefully, just fit into society, step into the background. No, you want to step into your power. Yes, both for men and women, but especially for women who've been getting the opposite advice.
Right. I mean, it's time to be the matriarchs here. This came out of me starting to talk more about, build muscle. I have been focused on muscle building since my early 20s as I started to work with clients, and everything was focused on cardio back then. This was in the 80s. Everything was vegetarian, vegan, and cardio. Lots and lots of cardio. And what I realized was it didn't work. My clients were 45 plus, and it wasn't working. And I went, well, they're not going to pay me to get worse, I'm pretty sure. And I discovered resistance training, and I was taking people to Gold's Gym, and I saw people in their 60s and 70s that were amazing. And I went, this is it. This is how you change everything. If you have more muscle, you change your metabolism. If you're doing cardio, you have to keep doing it all the time. It's like you're, making money and living on paycheck to paycheck versus having a great bank account and you're just living off the interest. Having the great bank account is having a lot of muscle. Living paycheck to paycheck is just doing cardio. So it's been really clear for a long time that this is the way to go. And I have been fighting this silliness for now 40 years, and I cannot believe it's still out there, that when you talk about muscle, the biggest thing I hear is, I don't want to get big. And I'll tell you, I mean, for years I've been saying, hey, do you know what it takes for a woman to put on 1 to 2 pounds of muscle a month? It is a fight.
Even a man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless you're like 18 years old, 20 years old, even at my age of 40, turning 42 this year, even for men, that's very difficult. There's men who work out in the gym 4 days a week, eating the appropriate amount of protein. And even for them, it can be a tough thing to do.
Right. So you look at it and go, lose up to 1% of your body weight, body fat, body weight really a week, and putting on 1 to 2 pounds of muscle a month. That's like Herculean. And people are afraid they're going to get too big. And the only time I've had a client get big is when they quit and decide to sit on the couch and eat. That's when you'll get big. Muscle's metabolic Spanx. It holds everything in tighter, boosts your metabolism. It's not going to make you bigger. And by the way, if you did say, oh my gosh, I'm getting bigger, you could stop. That would be it. But they'll say, I want your arms. I go, do you know what I do? Like, this is a lot of muscle. This is not toning. Like this idea of toning, I'm just going to do 100 repetitions with a pink dumbbell. It's just silliness. But I realized, hearing this over and over, I don't want to get big. I thought, you know what? Get big. What if it's time for you to get big, show up bigger in every part of your life? I remember early on working with a client, and she was getting so strong and so powerful, and her husband convinced her she had to quit because it was threatening him.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So you know how the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I see working out transferring to every part of your life. When you go to the gym and you work out, what you're doing is you're doing things that are hard, and you're showing your body, see, I can do things that are hard and I can get stronger. And then that transfers into every other part of your life. And that's why we need to go to the gym, and we need to push it past what we're used to, because exercise really is doing more than what you're used to so your body can adjust. That's why I got hate on Instagram for saying walking's not exercise, but unless you're very deconditioned, walking is like flossing. It's the things that we're supposed to be doing every day. Just like eating within a 10 to 12 hour window is not intermittent fasting. It's the way we should eat.
It's the way we're designed.
I'm like, you look at these things that we've now made things, and I go, walking is what we've always done. We just have made ourselves so comfortable. Like, I don't know if you ever read The Comfort Crisis.
Yeah.
Michael Easter, so good. It's like, okay, so now we have the Zumba thing that's doing our vacuuming. We just have removed everything out of our life that makes us have to move. This is the way we should have been. Like, that's just basic foundational move. That's what we should be doing. And by the way, I think as we age, we shouldn't be, I think they call it boomer sizing your house, where you now move into a 1-story house. I think that as you age, you should have to move into a 2 or 3-story house. And I think that the kitchen should be at the top and the bathroom should be at the bottom, right? And so you have to go up and down all the time. I think one of the reasons my mom lived till 93 is that she lived in a 2-story house and did everything herself. Up and down, up and down, up and down.
I mean, it seems like that's one of the things that they're doing in the blue zones, right? They're at different levels of elevation and living next to hills, and they're constantly walking throughout the day, 2 major things that you talked about.
Right. They don't have the little thing in the house to take them up and down the stairs if they do have stairs, and then the remote controls and all this ridiculous stuff. But the bigger concept, again, is think about this as your time now to really step into your purpose, into your legacy, into playing a bigger game in life. And you've got to have the body to be able to do it. You've got to have the energy to be able to do it. You've got to have the strength to be able to do it. So if you're having trouble getting in and out of a chair, sitting in a chair to do exercise is not going to make that better.
You mentioned about toning and all these myths that are there. People say, how do I get JJ Virgin arms? How do I get toned, right? And you said, look, I'm doing resistance training. I have my diet dialed in. I have these exercise microdoses throughout the day, these exercise snacks that are there, all the same things that you mentioned. I'm doing appropriate hydration. I'm eating protein, etc. It's not this idea that I'm just, doing 1,000 repetitions, and that leads to toning. So I'm glad you addressed that. Another question that we had from the last time that you were here is that people were worried about or are dealing with flabby skin, and especially women, they're concerned about, well, if I start to lose weight, am I going to have this flabby skin that's there? I can't tell you how often I've even heard from some of my mom's friends that are there, like, oh, you don't want to lose weight when you're older because it makes you look old. You have the weight sagging from your skin, you have the weight sagging from your belly. Just talk about that as a whole in any way you want to take it.
That is such an interesting one. Well, having worked with many morbidly obese people over the years, which my most favorite place to go is to work with people who are not exercising, who have like to just take them and completely transform them. I love that. However, it is challenging with their skin. Like I know that, couple of the people we had on Dr. Phil that lost 100, 200 pounds ended up with a lot of loose skin.
Yeah, that's a problem. Lot of weight loss for morbidly obese.
And this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about 30 pounds. It's amazing what your skin can do and how many cool things we have now, like collagen that can help. So to me, I look at those things and I go, I had a great mentor early on in life. And she said, when you hear something that sounds like an excuse, just put after it so I don't have to. Oh, don't lose that weight because you're just going to end up with like loose skin. What? Really? If you told me that I could wave a magic wand with that person and they would have their body composition where they wanted to be with great energy and they were strong and they had a little bit of extra skin, they wouldn't want that?
They'd still go for it.
Which is worse? Being metabolically unhealthy or having a little extra skin? Now, there are some things you can do if you actually get through this and your body doesn't, bodies are amazing what they can do. But if you do have a little extra skin, there are lasers and things like that you can do. I know that our buddy Dave Asprey, I have a friend in Austin, and he talks about this, so I can talk about this, who does this process called Elicor that microcores your skin. Tim and I did it with our face, and it pulls everything in tighter, and he did it with his body because, he was a 300-pound guy.
It's a laser and microneedling? What is it?
It's even more than a microneedle. These are like these 3 needles. They go and pull out thousands of cores, and then your body tightens up.
Was it painful?
They anesthetize you. It's not pretty, let's just say.
Okay.
But,
were you happy with the results?
I don't want a facelift. Yes, Dr. Rob Whitfield. He's quite the ninja. However, I think more than that, don't let what could be, this is the bigger idea, don't let what could be or could happen, I'm not going to go to the gym because I might get injured, is right along that same type of thinking. I don't want to lose this weight because this might happen. Instead, what about focusing of where do I want to be? What are the things that I want to be able to do this year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? And how do I have to live in order to be able to do those things? What type of career? I don't know about you, but retirement is never on my horizon. It's like, what's the next thing I want to be able to do? So what skill sets do I need to do? How strong do I need to be able to do those things? What are the things? Not what might happen if I do that. Someone might not like me, or, I might have extra skin.
You're moving towards something with having these goals, these aspirations of what you want to accomplish in life, versus using the fear of something might happen in the future is you're running away from something. And that's not a good long-term strategy to initiate change.
Right. And here's the thing. Sure. Would someone who's got higher body fat have a little bit fuller, plumper face as they age? What is it? Was it Katharine Hepburn who said you either got to keep your face or your butt as you aged? But, I'd rather have a couple wrinkles and be fitter and be able to do more personally.
But I think also part of that too is that people are losing weight, which is also, they're losing muscle. Yeah. They're losing fat and muscle. But what happens when you start to also strengthen and grow the muscle? You're adding to your lean body mass. You don't have, just typically from what I've seen from the people in my life that have lost weight, but have done it through strength training and eating protein, they don't have a lot of flabby skin, or if it is, it's a mild amount. And they're so happy. It's a badge of honor, and it's the tiniest little
Exactly.
bit versus people who just lost. And I guess the most extreme version of this is when people only lose weight through Ozempic and they're just not eating. That's the only thing they're doing. Last time you came on, you said, hey, these GLP-1s, these can be a tool in the toolbox to get people kickstarted. And there's a right way to do it, resistance training, protein, etc. But a lot of people are not doing that. They're just essentially having that satiety signal, not eating, but then they're not maintaining that muscle mass. So that is where you see some of that more extreme skin issue or hollowing of the face. What would have happened if they would have been training that whole
Exactly.
way?
Which applies to any diet, by the way. So any diet, if you look at the average diet, 25 to 40% of what you lose is muscle. Frightening. Any diet. You should never, ever go on caloric restriction without eating optimal protein, if anything, going a little higher in protein and doing resistance training. It shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be, because you're going to damage your metabolism further. And again, the thought process is don't lose weight to get healthy, get metabolically healthy to lose weight. It's such a different way to approach things. And it comes from such a place of loving yourself instead of this, I've got to lose weight, right? That's just this horrible thing. So the Ozempic thing, again, I always look at this and go, it's not the Ozempic that's causing the muscle loss. It's the poorly designed diet. What I think is interesting with Ozempic, with any of the GLP-1s, is if you look at this, the question is, why are these working so well? And when you look at GLP-1, if you are obese, have fatty liver disease, which 25% of the population now is fatty liver disease. That's crazy, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But if you're insulin resistant, obese, or have fatty liver disease, you'll be GLP-1 deficient. So to me, the whole question is, why is this working so well? Oh, it's working so well because we're GLP-1 deficient. If this could help us get back to that point and we can start to use things that help improve GLP-1, like exercise, protein, fiber, right? Then we can cross over and get through it, use it where it's needed, and then get our body to be able to do what it needs to do. But when you're really weight loss resistant, insulin resistant, exercise resistant, sometimes you need the things to help you get there, and it's worse to be metabolically unhealthy.
I forgot the gentleman's last name, but his first name is Jonathan, and he wrote a book called Miracle Drug. Have you seen this? He's kind of been making the rounds, and it's all about Ozempic. And he, as a writer, was obese. In the book, he even talks about meeting the Dalai Lama one time and getting fat shamed by the Dalai Lama.
Wow.
Which was a whole
I would not have expected that.
I think he was asking some very tough questions about some of the beliefs of the Dalai Lama, or things that he had heard. He was doing a little bit of a journalistic gotcha situation. And he is a journalist, so he was asking tough questions. It's his job. And the Dalai Lama started to kind of take the conversation a different way and ended up fat shaming him. I won't get into that, but he talks about it in the book. Anyways, the reason that I brought his name up is that he's talking about his journey of taking these drugs and having this sort of push and pull experience. On the one hand, they worked incredibly and helped him for the first time have sustained weight loss. He's been on more diets than any person that he knows that are out there, constantly going up and down and other things. But then on the other side, him asking really tough questions of, well, now they're talking about having kids on this from 8, 9, 10, and then for the rest of their life. Because once you stop being on these drugs, unless if you're working with an individual like yourself or a lot of people that are in our circles who are really temporarily using them, if they're going to use them, and then get you off of it to have a sustained life approach. So one of the coolest sections in the book is he talks about Japan. And I want to bring this up because I want to go back to this idea of tracking. Mm-hmm. So first I'll tell you the story and then I'll talk about the question, get your kind of thoughts on it. So it was either 2004 or 2008, Japan had a national freakout because their obesity rate in the country went from 3.5% to 4%. right? So just as a contrast, in America,
Right.
our obesity rates are like 30%. And then you add up 30, 40%. And then you add,
I think it's now 40.
yeah, so it's like 40%. Then you add people who are obese and overweight, and it's more than, 50%. So Japan, they had a national emergency freak out, like in their Congress, politicians, business owners. It was a big, big thing of, holy shit, what the F is happening? Because they went up like not even a full percentage point. So they said, we need to do something about this. So one of the things that they did is first they started with children, because we know that the habits that you have at a young age set the tone for the rest of your life. So they said, number one, all processed food is banned in school. All processed food, no processed food at all. Every school has to have a full-time nutritionist, and that nutritionist is responsible of working with the culinary team to design from scratch meals every day that meet the appropriate levels of carbs, fat, and protein, micronutrients. They eat all sorts of cool and crazy things.
I know,
over
I
there
lived
in
in
Japan,
Japan.
right? They're eating seaweed and these different fish things. And every day, kids eat fresh food at school. In some of the youngest schools, kids actually will even help out and prepare, like more symbolically. They're not like cooking over a stove, but they'll help prepare. They'll wash vegetables, they'll chop things, and they're teaching these kids these life skills that are part of it. So that was one thing they did. Now for adults, and this is something that is very controversial and probably would not work in the land of the free and home of the brave here in America, but it was a big part of their process of what helped them. For adults, for companies of a certain size, basically anybody that works in kind of like corporate Japan, like we have corporate America, employers were mandated to track an employee's weight. Employers were mandated to track an employee's weight and give them, more importantly, tools and resources to have a nutritionist on staff and to have people that would intervene when they saw that things were heading in the wrong direction to be able to support them. And the controversial thing about it, we can look at that from a sense of America, of, people, do we really want, if we're working at Coca-Cola, do we want them tracking and being responsible for our weight and our health? But in Japan, there's this sort of national identity where a lot of the employees that were surveyed in these national surveys were like, you know what? I'm so thankful that my employer cares enough, because if they weren't tracking and letting me know, I would have just easily ate too much, got fat, wasn't exercising. It's not just about eating. It's about movement. It's about other things. And I'm thankful that they're putting in these resources and providing the tools that were there. So I don't think that would fly here in the States, but it's just interesting as a concept that the country that has probably the most modern country that has the lowest level of obesity had to take such drastic measures to actually support children and adults, because our processed food system is just so addictive. And most people that are out there, they're not listening to a podcast. They're not necessarily watching our YouTube videos together, and they need some sort of system. Now, I'm not saying it's the Japanese system, but it does go back to this idea of over there, the government might be involved and companies you work for, but tracking and paying attention to things works. And because we're not going to do that anytime soon on a national level, we got to do it ourselves. Any thoughts about that?
Oh, there's so many thoughts. I think I told you I was in Seoul, South Korea this summer, and both the hotels I went to, the gyms were insane. And everyone was, and clearly these were gyms that weren't just like, it was a JW Marriott, and it was also this major gym, and everyone was in PE clothes. And they were aged like 40 to 80. And the whole time we're in Seoul, I never saw one person who was overweight. Tim saw one, because I was like, there's no one even overweight. And forget obese, no one's overweight. And the gyms have people that are in their 70s and 80s in PE clothes, which I thought was like,
that's awesome.
Look at this, they're in PE clothes, which was amazing to me. But I think back to when I was on Dr. Phil, because we decided that we were going to tackle teenage obesity. What a nightmare this was. First of all, we tried to take over a school in Texas. But you know what the problem is that the big food has all the contracts with the schools.
Yeah.
So you can't change anything.
Yeah.
It's very, very problematic. Then we tried to just help some teens in LA, but the problem was the parents. You had to fix it's like, what do you do? So the parents were eating unhealthy.
Right.
And so now we had the kids who were trying to eat healthy, but the parents weren't eating healthy. So we're trying to help the kids eat. It's like chicken egg. What the heck do you do here to fix this thing? And then you look and go, okay, kids on Ozempic. I mean, obviously the step one is, could we somehow get kids eating healthier and learning how to cook in schools? I think when you had the pandemic, you realized people don't know how to cook. I was telling a story. My son, I remember one of my friends was like, you need to watch what your kid is watching on YouTube because he's probably watching porn. And I go, my kid is not watching porn. Turns out my kid was watching cooking videos. And he loves to cook, but we've got to be able to have healthy food at home that our kids can then cook, that they learn how to cook. And what would happen if we actually did those types of things in school? You look at the stuff we learned in school and like, how does that really change your life? If you learned in school how to like manage your finances and do exercise and sleep well and have great relationships and cook, everything would be different. But those are none of the skills that we have at all. So it's a hard one because you go, where does this start? How do we fix this? Are we so far down the path now that there's no way to fix this when you look at what's going on in the supermarkets? Like I was at the gym at the hotel yesterday, and the hotel gym had these commercials going. One was for Skittles. No, it was Starburst. One was for Papa John's. And it was just went on and on and on. Little football game and then food. And I was like, holy smokes, this is what people are seeing every day. How do we unwind this? I don't know. And then you look at it and go, okay, you've got a kid. Obviously, you want the kid eating healthy. You want the kids sleeping, eating healthy, having something for stress management and exercising. But if they go home and the family's not eating healthy, how's this going to work? And if they're an overweight child, the risk they'll be an overweight adult, 70%. If they're put on this drug, if nothing else works, they've tried everything else, which I don't know how to do if they've got a family situation the way they have it. So what do we do? Healthy boarding schools? I don't know what to do here, right? But if you've got a kid who they've actually put them on everything, but they've now got such a damaged metabolism they can't lose weight, they would be on polypharmacy the rest of their life. So then the question is, which is worse? And I don't know, like, don't shoot the messenger. Like, I just want people to be healthy. But if you are a child who now is on diabetes meds, maybe like blood pressure medication and a statin, and you're staying obese versus you get on this medication and you actually have to be on it for life, but you won't be obese, but you also won't have to be on all those other medications, which is worse.
Yeah, I think it's an important conversation. I'd love to see a lot more debates about it. And I think that individuals that I'm friends with, like Callie Means, right? He's
so far over this way. It's like, I think he's just fantastic. I'm like, but Callie, look at it both sides. No one wants a kid to have to be on these things. And no one wants a kid to be obese. And no one wants a kid to be set up to be obese the whole rest of their life. Obviously, the first step is, how do we help them why did we cut PE out of schools? Couldn't the schools be the first place we learn how to eat healthy and live healthy? Shouldn't all of that be in the schools? But you have big food controlling it.
Yeah. Which is one thing I really appreciate that he's bringing in, is that almost in that way, the way that Japan freaked the out when they went up, not even a full percentage point of obesity. He's like, our situation is way worse, which we all agree on. We need a national level freak out.
We do, but we've got the wrong money controlling it.
Yeah. I
mean, that's you look at it and you've got big food money controlling this. It's a big challenge. And he is shining the light on this. And I'm so grateful for that. And if there is a situation, with adults, like I look at it and go, if semaglutide, if one of these peptides could help you get off all your other medications, but you had to stay on it for life, but you would never have to be on those other medications, you're probably better off. So we have to always risk reward all of these things and not look at it emotionally. But the kid thing, kills me because I remember back in school, we had one kid who was a little overweight, teased relentlessly. It's the only kid I can remember who was overweight. You didn't have obese kids. That's not natural or normal, right?
Yeah.
And, and we had one day a week where we got like a Hostess cupcake and a hot dog. The rest of the time, everybody had their lunch. And they were, it wasn't ultra processed food stuff.
There's this nonprofit that's based in the Bay Area. I'm blanking on the name, but the founder's name is Nora. And they go into schools and they actually work with schools to like convert and set up their kitchen. And they help parents sort of like create advocacy. And they're mostly in the Bay Area. They're not just in high economic areas. They've worked with some more impoverished schools that are more in poverty-stricken areas. And one of the biggest things that they were saying, and Robert Lustig is an advisor and a few other people that are there, one of the things that they were saying, I think it's called the Real Schools Project. Anyways, we'll link to it in the show notes. They were saying that these schools have been so co-opted by big food that when they go in, the school actually has the will and the principals on board and the families, like enough people are there that want to support this. One of the biggest challenges, they actually don't even have the real estate in the school because they've outsourced everything. There's not even a place in the school to make food. And so they're dealing with even just the most foundational aspects of there's not the section to make food. There's not enough burners. There's not enough kitchen because it's all been brought in by Cisco and these other big food companies.
And they've got the contracts. So there's nothing you can do. That was the big thing we discovered in Texas. Like they have the contracts. There's nothing you can do.
Hey, YouTube, if you enjoyed what you just saw, keep watching for more great content on how to improve your brain and your life.
That's exactly what you should do on a daily basis, is just find ways to do what you're going to do anyway, but move a little more, okay?